And now we see Peter is being persecuted for being a Christian and for preaching. So now about that time, Herod the king stretched forth his hands to vex certain of the church. And he killed James, the brother of John, with the sword. Probably beheaded him, but I don't know. It don't tell. It don't say. But he was killed. He was executed for being a Christian. There is, and he killed James, the brother of John, with a sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread. So the Passover's done rolled back around. It's that time of year. A little story about James, and it's kind of far-fetched, but I'm going to put it out there just so you can say you heard it. There is a belief that James, who died as early as he did, went to Spain preaching the gospel. Now, I'm really skeptical, but I'm just telling you that's what some people thinks. And if you look back through records, church records and all, sometime around the 9th century, people started making a pilgrimage to this area in Spain where supposedly John was buried. James. And so around the 10th century. And it's become a big thing. I mean, over the years, people are still doing it. And they even say that James' body was taken from Jerusalem back over there and buried. And so supposedly somebody found stuff, artifacts, to prove that. But again, I say, I question it, okay? But anyway, James didn't live long after Jesus left, and he was, I guess we could say, was the first person killed, first martyr, first apostle killed for his faith. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, he proceeded further to take Peter also. Then were the days of unleavened bread. So he's seen something he can do to make the people like him. He's killed one of these Christians. So here's another. Let me put him up, and we'll kill him too, and that just makes me fall into better favor with people. Now, we've been acquainted with about 4 Herods in the Bible. Herod, the first one, the great, when Jesus was born. And then Herod, who lived in the time of John the Baptist, who beheaded, or had him beheaded. And then this Herod and their brothers or grandsons or nephews, they're not all straight through one line, but they are related. So Herod saw that he could please the people, and he did. Now that's the 3rd Herod. The 4th Herod is, we'll find in the book of Acts towards the end, when Paul is pleading his cause, and it's right before he gets shipped off to Rome to face Caesar. But this would be Herod Agrippa I, and the one in Paul's day later on, a few years later, would be Herod Agrippa II. So a lot of Herods. So Peter therefore was kept in prison, but prayer was made without ceasing of the church unto God for him. And when Herod would have brought him forth, the same night, Peter was sleeping between two soldiers bound with two chains, and the keepers before the door kept the prison. Now, go back a little bit. It says that he was kept in prison 4 quaternions, 4 groups of 4. So they had 16 people keeping an eye on him. So Herod had him a big party planned. After the feast, after the Passover, he was going to kill another one of those Christians and build up his character with the Jewish people. Okay. And Herod would have brought him forth the same night Peter was sleeping between 2 soldiers and bound with 2 chains. And the keepers before the door kept the prison. And behold, the angel of the Lord came upon him, and a light shined in the prison, and he smote Peter on the side and raised him up, saying, Arise up quickly, and his chains fell from off his hands. So God intervenes miraculously to get Peter out of the fix he's in, and it's not time for Peter to die. He will eventually die a few years later. I don't know how long, but there were things yet that Peter needed to do. And he smote Peter on the side, raised him up, saying, Rise up quickly, and his chains fell off from his hands. And the angel said to him, Gird thyself and bind on thy sandals. And so he did, and he saith unto him, Cast thy garment about thee, and follow me. And he went out and followed him, and wist not that it was true, which was done by the angel, but he thought he saw a vision. So Peter's, he's a little bit bewildered by all this, but God's working a miracle. But he's trying to sort things out. What's going on here? And I mean, this is not possible for this to be happening. But this is God, and this is God working with me, for me, to get me out, because I have a little more work yet to do. And when they were past the first and second ward, they came unto the iron gate that leadeth unto the city, which opened to them of his own accord. And they went out and passed on through one street, and forthwith the angel departed from him. So Peter's out, and now he's going to go on to where he's got some friends, where he knows he's got some friends. And when Peter was come to himself, he said, Now I know of a surety that the Lord hath sent his angel, and hath delivered me out of the hand of Herod, and from all the expectation of the people of the Jews. And when he had considered the thing, he came to the house of Mary, the mother of John, whose surname was Mark, where many were gathered together praying. Now, we're going to hear more about Mark, John Mark. We're going to hear more about him, and he is actually, we believe, the Mark that wrote the Gospel of Mark. But, and we'll get into this a few more lessons down the road. There was a little problem between Paul and Mark, but they eventually worked it out. But so he went to the house of John Mark, and as Peter knocked at the door of the gate, a damsel came to hearken named Rhoda. And she was, I guess, kind of like I would have been. And when she knew Peter's voice, she opened not the gate for gladness, but ran in and told how Peter stood before the gate. They said unto her, Thou art mad, but she constantly affirmed that it was even so. Then said they, Well, it's just his angel. But Peter continued knocking, and when they had opened the door, he saw him, they were astonished. But he, beckoning unto them with a hand, hold their peace, be quiet and listen, declared unto them how the Lord had brought him out of the prison. And he said, Go show these things unto James and to the brethren. And this James would have been James, the brother of Jesus, we think. And to the brethren, and he departed and went into another place. Now, as soon as it was day, there was no small stir among the soldiers what was become of Peter. And when Herod had sought for him and found him not, he examined the keepers and commanded that they should be put to death, and he went down from Judea to Caesarea. So he's in Jerusalem now. He's going down the coast to Caesarea. And we'll get into that in a minute, but he let his pride get the best of him. Herod did. And that's an obstacle. I think most of us, we're honest, we have pride can be a problem. Pride can make us, well, I'll just be plain. Pride can make us do stupid stuff. If I'm trying to hide my faults and I'm willing to start making up tales or going to a lot of trouble to hide this or hide that, you end up making a bigger fool out of yourself than you would have if you had just said, I was wrong. Y'all probably don't have that issue, but I do. I do. Now, and Herod was highly displeased with them of Tyre and Sidon. Okay, this is an area where Herod has authority over it, and there seems to be some bad blood between him and the people of that town. And he wants to make it better. And they came with one accord. And Herod was highly displeased with them of Tyre and Sidon, but they came with one accord to him, and having made Blastus, and here's another person in the story that maybe had some pull, made Blastus the king's chamberlain their friend, desired peace because their country was nourished by the king's country. So Herod's country was somehow or another helping these people, maybe just providing a little food or something, but they wanted to get this fixed. So, and upon a day set, Herod, arrayed in royal apparel, sat upon his throne and made an oration unto them. Now he's making a big fine speech and probably feeling real good. You know, I look smart. And these people, I'm really impressing them. Made an oration unto them, and the people gave a shout, saying, "It's the voice of a God, and not of man." Yeah, right there he said, "Oh, wait a minute." He should have said, "Wait a minute. No, I'm just a man. I'm just a man." But no. Yep. And immediately the angel of the Lord smote him because he gave not God the glory, and he was eaten of worms and gave up the ghost. And I don't know how fast this happened. Could have been right then. It could have took a few days. I don't know. And Barnabas and Saul returned from Jerusalem when they had fulfilled their ministry and took with them John, whose surname was Mark. Now, this doesn't seem to fit with this story, but let's go back to the last chapter, the last verse, last two verses in chapter 11. There was a famine, and it seemed to be worse in and around Jerusalem than in the other places. And then the disciples, every man according to his ability, determined to send relief unto the brethren which dwelt in Judea. Now, I don't know why it was worse in Judea than up the road there where they were, but be it as it may, which they also did, and sent it to the elders by the hands of Barnabas and Saul. Now we come back around and we pick up the end result of that, And it says Barnabas and Saul returned from Jerusalem. So they took the offering and gave it to the church, and then they went back to Antioch, I believe it was. But we see John's name again, John Mark. Now, I don't know. There's a lot of names in the Bible where they had a name and then they call them something else. In the King James Version, it's called surname. But just like Peter, his name was Cephas, but Jesus changed it to Peter, which I think they both meant rock. Different languages, different words in different languages meaning the same thing. But John, whose surname was Mark, well, surname, the way I understand it, would be my last name, would be Wilkie. But that's not what they're talking about here. They're talking about something else. But anyway. So they took the offering and they went back, and then we're going to see the setting up of the first missionary journey. And I don't want to get into that, but we'll see that even with these great people, that they had their problems and their differences and their disagreements, and we will study about one of those shortly, a few chapters down the road. So that seems quick, but what do y'all see? What do y'all think? What happened to Peter? What does our Bible tell us happened to Peter? It don't tell us nothing. Now, let's go back to the Sea of Galilee. And I'm straying off a little bit, but this is interesting to me. When Jesus came to Peter and asked him 3 times to feed his sheep, and Peter knew what he was doing, and it bothered him. But you remember the part where Jesus said, when you're old, somebody will take you and take you somewhere you don't want to go? And this he said, referring to the death he would die, which I don't think it comes right out and says it, but it was crucifixion. But our Bible does not record that event. It doesn't record the death of Saul. But there are writings, the Acts of Peter. Apocryphal, they call it apocryphal writings. It's writings that are not really authentic, but somebody wrote it. And because somebody wrote it, somebody read it and believed it. But there is a story in the book of the Acts of Peter where Peter was fleeing Rome to escape persecution, and he met Jesus carrying a cross walking into Rome. Now, I don't believe that, but a lot of people do. And there's actually a church where that supposedly happened, built to commemorate that. And then, of course, we know the story how that Peter has to be crucified upside down. But these are examples of how things get started, just like the way of James that we were talking about, the pilgrimage. Things get started that maybe don't have any credibility, but after a while, they take on their own credibility because they just keep hanging around. The way of James is what they call it. It's a pilgrimage. Camino del Santiago, But there seems to be an organized effort to maybe support pilgrims as they make that journey. So people are doing it, whether it's justified or not. People are doing it. And supposedly John was taken back over there and buried after he was killed by Herod. But I don't know. That's a long way, and not a whole lot of time to get there. So I don't know. I got my doubts about it, but I'm not going to say it ain't true. I just say I'm skeptical about it. Anybody got any thoughts? Anything? I probably probably got a whole lot of time left, but I ain't got no words left. So you want to know what I think about that? Just put me on the spot. No. Well, Revelation is so full of symbolism that you can make it say whatever you want to make it say. And the 1,000-year reign might be a literal 1,000 years. It might represent a span of time. I mean, you can go back in the book of Daniel and find the same references to times that, time and a half time, and I don't know what it means. So the 1,000-year reign, I don't really care because I'm saved and I'm going to heaven, and it doesn't matter. Well, people, being the way we are, we like to be right and we like to know. And we like to be smarter than the people that we're talking with. So, there you go. You can stir up a big stir just trying to be right and letting your pride make you look stupid. Well, we're very competitive, and once we get into a confrontation, we want to win, and we'll go to great lengths to win. That's just us. Yeah. Anybody else? What time is it anyway?